Life brings us face to face with the undeniable truth that people come and go. We bond with others, build connections, and often anchor our emotions to those relationships. Yet what happens when those bonds break? How do you handle the emotional weight when someone no longer occupies the same space in your life, or when you realize they've never shared the same emotional investment? You might ask, how do I stop caring, or can I truly detach emotionally without losing a piece of myself? This is where Stoicism, particularly the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, offers us a path. The Stoics were masters at understanding human emotions, not by avoiding them, but by learning how to balance their grip on our lives. Emotional detachment isn't about becoming cold or indifferent, but about regaining the power to act with clarity and inner peace. In this article, I'll guide you through 5 timeless Stoic rules on how to emotionally detach from someone using Marcus Aurelius's wisdom as our beacon. This isn't just about theory, it's practical advice meant to reshape the way you engage with yourself and others. Rule 1. Understand the impermanence of life. One of the core teachings of Stoicism, as passed down by Marcus Aurelius, is the understanding that everything in life is temporary. This includes not only our material possessions and physical bodies, but also the relationships and connections we form. Life constantly changes, and nothing is meant to last forever. This realization, though often painful, is the first step toward emotional detachment. When we experience strong emotions tied to a person, such as love, friendship, or attachment, it's easy to believe that these feelings will last forever. We often try to hold on to them tightly, thinking that if we invest enough time, energy, or effort, the connection will endure. However, the reality is different. People come and go, relationships evolve, and circumstances shift. Nothing in life is static. Marcus Aurelius wisely reminds us that everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. What this means is that our perception of relationships and emotional connections is just that, a perception. It is not a permanent or absolute truth. This perspective can bring immense peace when we face the reality that relationships often fade or end. By accepting the impermanence of life, we are no longer caught off guard when things change. We stop holding on to people, ideas, or moments too tightly, and we begin to appreciate them while they last. This doesn't mean we should be emotionally detached in a cold way, but rather we should let go of the pressure of trying to hold on to people or situations that are bound to change. Think about the example of holding sand in your hands. The tighter you grip, the quicker it slips through your fingers. This is the nature of attachment. When we cling too tightly to something or someone, the harder it becomes to retain it. But if we can acknowledge and accept that nothing is permanent, we become more resilient in the face of change. In my own experience, I had a friendship that lasted over a decade. We shared countless memories, supported each other, and grew together. But over time, the connection began to fade. It wasn't a dramatic event, it just happened slowly. Despite my efforts to revive it, the emotional investment I had made began to feel like a weight. I realized that the relationship had run its course. When I accepted that, I could finally release the emotional hold it had over me. I felt lighter and more at peace. Learning to embrace impermanence doesn't make us cold-hearted. Instead, it makes us appreciate the present moment more. We cherish people while they are in our lives, but also allow them the freedom to change, grow, or leave without letting it consume our happiness. When you understand that everything is fleeting, you stop trying to control it and instead embrace it as it comes, knowing that it will eventually change. This understanding is liberating and essential for emotional detachment. Rule 2. Master your emotions through rational thought. A core belief of Stoicism is that emotions are not inherently bad, but we must learn to control them. Emotions like anger, sadness, and anxiety often arise in our lives, especially in the context of relationships. But the Stoics believed we are not at the mercy of these feelings. Instead, we can control how we respond to them. Marcus Aurelius often taught that we cannot control external events, but we can always control our responses to them. "You have power over your mind, not outside events," he said. This means that while we cannot stop ourselves from feeling upset, anxious, or hurt when a relationship changes, we do have the ability to choose how we process and respond to these feelings. The key to emotional detachment, therefore, is not to suppress or deny emotions, but to question them, understand their origin, and decide whether they are justified. Take a breakup, for example. It's completely normal to feel hurt and sad when someone you care about no longer wants to be in your life. But the Stoic response is to examine those feelings and ask, what is causing this pain? Is it the person's actions, or is it my thoughts about their actions? Often we get caught up in narratives we create in our heads. They don't love me anymore, or they don't care about me. But these are not facts. They are interpretations. By questioning our automatic emotional responses, we can see that our feelings are not always rooted in reality. When something triggers a strong emotional reaction, pause for a moment and ask yourself, is there an alternative way to look at this situation? Are there facts that I'm ignoring, or am I imagining things that aren't real? This rational approach can bring clarity. It allows us to separate the facts from our emotional reactions, which ultimately helps us detach from unnecessary emotional turmoil. I once found myself obsessing over a message from a close friend who hadn't replied in a while. My mind spiraled into thoughts like, they must be upset with me, and maybe I said something wrong. But when I took a step back, I realized that I had no evidence to support these thoughts. My friend was simply busy, and there was no reason to believe they were upset with me. By focusing on facts and reality rather than our emotional interpretations, we can reduce the power emotions have over us. This helps us detach emotionally, not by shutting down our feelings, but by gaining a clearer perspective on what's truly important. Rule 3. Practice negative visualization. Negative visualization is a Stoic exercise that might seem counterintuitive at first. Why would anyone want to imagine the worst possible outcome? The truth is that this practice is incredibly powerful for emotional detachment. By regularly imagining the worst-case scenario, we prepare ourselves mentally for loss and disappointment. This doesn't mean we become pessimistic or negative. Rather, it helps us face the inevitability of change and loss with strength and resilience. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do not disturb yourself by imagining the whole of your life's troubles at once. Rather, as each arises, meet it with calmness and self-control." In other words, we don't need to stress about every potential loss in life all at once. But by mentally preparing ourselves for challenges, we can meet them with greater calmness and less emotional pain when they inevitably arise. One way to practice negative visualization is to imagine a scenario in which you lose someone important to you. Picture them no longer being part of your life and allow yourself to feel the discomfort that this thought brings. This may seem painful, but by confronting this discomfort, we reduce its power over us. When the actual loss happens, whether through a breakup, a move, or even death, we are less likely to be blindsided by it because we've already prepared ourselves. For example, I once had a close friend who was moving overseas. The thought of losing them filled me with dread. But instead of avoiding those feelings, I practiced negative visualization by imagining what life would be like without them. I thought about how I would fill my days, how I would find joy in new experiences, and how I would adapt. When the day came and they moved away, I wasn't as devastated as I thought I would be. I had already mentally rehearsed the loss, which made it easier to accept. The benefit of this practice is that it helps us appreciate what we have while it's still here. Knowing that nothing lasts forever makes us more grateful for the present moment. Negative visualization doesn't create fear of loss, but rather prepares us for it, giving us the emotional strength to cope when it comes. Rule 4. Focus on what you can control. One of the greatest sources of emotional turmoil comes from trying to control things that are beyond our control. In relationships, this is especially true. We often try to influence how others feel about us or attempt to fix things that are beyond our ability to change. The Stoic approach is to focus only on what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and responses. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly emphasized the importance of recognizing what is in our power and what is not. You have control over your thoughts and actions, but nothing else. This understanding can be incredibly liberating. When we stop trying to control other people's behavior or the outcome of a situation, we release the anxiety and stress that come with those efforts. Take, for example, a situation where someone close to you becomes distant. It's easy to feel hurt and frustrated, thinking, "Why aren't they putting in the same effort I am?" Or, "What can I do to make them care more?" But these questions are focused on things beyond your control. The only thing you can control is your response. You can decide how to act, how to feel, and how to cope with the situation. I once found myself in a relationship where I was always trying to keep things together. I would make extra efforts to show my partner that I cared, sending thoughtful messages or planning surprises, but they would still pull away. I began to feel frustrated and powerless. When I realized that I couldn't control how they felt, I began to focus on myself instead. I started paying attention to my own emotional well-being and letting go of the need for their approval. The relief I felt from releasing this control was immense. By focusing on what we can control, we free ourselves from the emotional roller coaster that comes from trying to manage the uncontrollable. We stop being prisoners to other people's actions and start living with greater emotional autonomy. Rule 5. Acceptance. Acceptance is the final and perhaps most crucial Stoic principle when it comes to emotional detachment. It's the understanding that life is unpredictable and people are unpredictable. Rather than clinging to an idealized version of how things should be, we must learn to accept them as they are. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, obstacles in life are not barriers, they are opportunities to grow. By accepting the reality of a situation, rather than fighting against it or wishing it were different, we open ourselves to growth and peace. When we resist what has already happened, we cause ourselves unnecessary suffering. Take a breakup, for example. It's natural to feel lost and overwhelmed by the emotions that come with it. We might replay every moment and wonder if we could have done something differently. But the Stoic response is to accept the situation as it is, not as we wish it would be. This acceptance allows us to move forward, learn, and grow. In my own life, I went through a painful breakup that left me questioning everything. I spent days wondering if I could have changed the outcome. But when I started to accept the situation, I realized that I couldn't change the past. All I could do was focus on my own healing and growth. Acceptance brought me peace, and from that peace, I was able to rebuild. Emotional detachment through acceptance doesn't mean we stop caring or become indifferent. It means we stop clinging to the past and start embracing the present. By accepting life's changes, we cultivate the resilience to face whatever comes our way. Thanks for watching. If you found these Stoic insights helpful, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content on personal growth and emotional well-being. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Stay focused, stay peaceful, and keep growing.